able to chat, because we're going to be doing a lot of chatting here on the show, make sure you've got turns so you can type and see the chat list, chat box, whatever that is. Also, if you're just joining us here in the next 5 minutes, please support Cinema Sound by putting up one of those texts in the chat room that's a donation. It helps keep Cinema Sound rolling, keeps us in the green so that we can keep making shows, education and more. You can do that by just clicking on the little dollar sign in the text window there, and you'll get a highlighted post. Feel free to advertise yourself. The more money you donate, the longer it stays up. I'll be back in just a minute. Left here while we gather everybody. Excuse me while I'm sucking on this little cough drop here. I've been getting over a pretty bad bronchitis. Had to go to the doctor to get antibiotics, which I hate so much, but I'm grateful that we can. Otherwise, life would be very difficult. How many of you have had this flu or whatever, this lung thing that's going on around here? Man, tough stuff. Whew. And yes, the rumors are true. I'm now engaged. That all went down on February 2nd at Disneyland in front of the Wishing Well. My fiance used to be Snow White, believe it or not, at Disneyland, so I thought it was apropos to do it there. Had a great time. Super awesome. And it was pouring rain, and the rain just kind of stopped just in time for us to do that and then start it back up again. It was like it was meant to be. Ooh. Let's see. Hey, Jody. Thank you, Jody. And I have, of course, an article about how I hid this very transmitter right here. Well, that looks weird. Look at that. So weird. So that I could have good audio, because, you know, so many videos that you see are just, they sound horrible because they're using their own phone mic, which worse than useless. And to be fair to your phone mic, people that were 2 feet away from us videoing couldn't understand what was being said because it was noisy. So having the lavalier on board, hidden, transmitting, going to a separate recorder, really, really important. You know, obviously for any kind of wedding photography or whatever, but, or event photography. All righty. Hey everybody, welcome to the audio compression. I'm your host, Mark Edward Lewis, and I'm the only folks you're gonna have on the show today, at least in real time. Last week we had the Hamill brothers on, which was so totally dope. I loved that show. I hope you learned as much, if not more than I did, just talking to them and having them on. This week is officially the start of the effects volume, and I encourage you to go take a look at the Cinema Sound Education. And if you haven't watched those volumes yet, the chapters in that volume, I encourage you to do so, because we're going to move pretty fast. There's a ton of varied kinds of stuff to cover in the effects volume. And if you've watched it, you know it's not just building effects, it's also spotting, which we're going to be looking at tonight. Panning, positioning, mixing, layering, magic attack. I think we even have loop groups in there, and ambiances, and 5-1 position. I mean, there's a ton of ecumenical disciplines, and we're going to cover a lot of it. And we're going to have some more guests on. And two things. If you remember, and you are, if you're watching this, I hope, I'd like to have you on the show. And as you can see, we can do it remotely via Skype. The Hamill brothers were in Texas, and I'm in Los Angeles, so that was no big deal. And also, we are doing interviews for our sponsors. We're going to be posting those up on the site. Interviews on how you use your gear, how you do your business, just kind of getting back to what you all do and how you use the gear, and a great learning process. I know several of you are already in process on that, and we're really looking forward to get the pictures and the edits that you might have, so we can, you know, post it and get excited, and the sponsors will take it and promote it as well. Also, tonight is the first time Adobe Premiere has tweeted one of our articles, one of our video articles, and they just did that with the, the trailer to the effects volume, and it was very apropos. They do the magic attack, the place with the 9mm, and we, do the attacks with the cannons, and then fade into the 9mm to make it bigger and all of that. So that's pretty awesome. We've had a really great response. Just, I don't know, what is it, 90 minutes ago or 2 hours ago? So that's super, super cool. What else? Oh, I mentioned I'm engaged now. Or maybe I already mentioned that while I was on the show. I don't even remember. It's just exciting. And I do remember that I mentioned before the show that if you would like to, even here, even now, support Cinema Sound, we could definitely use your help. And it helps us keep the lights on, keep making content. There's a lot to be done, and it definitely costs money. You know that battery, that AA battery article we did, I just gotten a lot of great exposure. It cost us over $400 just to buy the batteries. So anyway, if you'd like to support us, you can always do that by buying any of our products in the store, or renting or purchasing any of the Cinema Sound bits that we have in the education. Or you can use that little, it's a dollar sign for those of you who aren't in America. The dollar sign there that's on the text link part here in the, live chat. That's what it's called, live chat. You click on that and you can donate to any amount. Feel free to promote yourself or just say something nice. And that money will go to Cinema Sound and helping us keep the lights on. The more you donate, the longer that highlighted thing stays on, the highlighted text stays on. Jody was very kind in doing it for us, donating last week. And thank you all for supporting Cinema Sound like you do. All right. So what are we doing? I don't have any more announcements, really. Sorry, I'm going to get through this really fast, and then you won't hear me slurring with something in my mouth. So, we are going to be taking a look at spotting sound effects. Not a very sexy thing to have to talk about, but one of the most important things. Because if you don't know where to put your sound effects, if you don't know what's going where, and you don't have a process for doing it, sometimes it can be really cumbersome, especially for those of you who have seen the Donuts piece, where there's hundreds of sound effects. Frame accurate cutting is required, layers, and I mean, it's like almost looks like a bar of markers if you look at that timeline. Well, we're not going to be looking at that tonight, because I want to leave that for all of you to enjoy in the Cinema Sound Education, where it belongs. But tonight we're going to be looking at the Macbeth piece, which is a little more Foley heavy. Not so much hard effects, but Foley heavy, and that's always very, very important. And while you're doing your spotting, for effects, sometimes you can do your spotting for music as well. We're going to take a look at that. And in the process of doing so, I'm going to show you how to set up Spatial Audio Designer. So a few of you have asked, we have a 40% discount for Cinema Sound members. How do we set it up in Audition? And maybe not so kindly of me, I've just said, hey, they've got that all on their own website, so go check them out. And, well, I could have done it myself. It's sort of talked about in the Cinema Sound Education, a general and very complicated setup, but we're going to just do a basic one here. Probably the most basic setup that I can think of for you. And if you don't know what Spatial Audio Designer is, we'll get to that in a minute. And then time remaining, which we should have, we're going to look at another user file and see what we can do, sort of tagged over from the fixed volume. You know, anytime you have a file that you want us to look at, you know, help you with on the show, get your opinions about, whatever, there's a link there in the live chat. It's a Google Drive. You should be able to upload your files there. Obviously, let us know that you would like us to do that. Otherwise, we'll think it's some kind of weird spammy thing or a virus or some horrific thing. And then we'll either be able to get you on the show here or on the following week. Cool. All right, let's jump in. Let's see. All right, let's see. We're going to go here. And we're back in Adobe Audition. Oh, by the way, we're releasing tons of Adobe Audition videos on the plugins, so hopefully you've been able to check those out. I'm going to go to the Macbeth file, which is here. Cool. One of the things I've noticed about Adobe Audition, and you might have noticed this too, especially if you're on a Macintosh, is that although you have, if I go here to Audition Preferences Audio Hardware, although you have a lot of I/O buffer sizes, you really only have out to what the maximum of your audio interface is. Now I'm running the Marker Unicorn 1248, and its maximum buffer size is 1024, or a megabit, whatever you want to call it. You can go out here, but it really taxes the processors, and you get all kinds of bad problems and, you know, jittering audio and all of that. So just because this goes out that far doesn't mean it's the optimum setting. And this session is large enough, as you can see, to be able to tax even my 12-core Macintosh. So we want to be careful, and we were kind of panicking a little bit about that. We'd forgotten about the buffer sizes, and it was kind of jittering around and all of that. So make sure you don't go over the buffer size of your audio interface. Okay, I've already got some markers in here. Let's just get rid of these. These are from the education, probably. Okay, so I'm just going to introduce you to the track count. I'm going to go to the mixer. And over here we have bars and tones. I don't know why the metronome is there, but it is. We have the dialogue bus, and this, of course, is in 5.1. There's 6 individual channels. Sound effects bus, Foley bus, music bus, ambiences bus, and the final print master. You can see there's some EQs that we've already built in on here. This is for the LFE channel, and this is for, well, we're not actually using it, but if we wanted to contour the EQ at all. We're going to continue over, and then we have these in brown. These are our dialogue tracks. There's not many of them. It's a 2-person scene, but we have our mono reverb, and then we have our dialogue. This is front and back stereo reverb, sort of that 5.1 cheat, because we wanted to load the convolution of the room that we built from an impulse response, and unfortunately there's still a bug in the 5.1 convolution verb that won't let you really do that. Then we have sound effects, not too many hard effects really, and then they're verbs. Again, here's 2 in the front that are stereo, no real need to do surround there. And then we have all of the Foley, Foley, and then a Foley verb, a couple of Foley verbs, and then we have all of the music. Lots of music stems, a little 5.1 reverb here. This is the built-in surround verb from Audition. And then the ambiences, just a few tracks worth, which we'll get into. And then our master output over here. That's interesting. Why that is there. Oh, I know why, because I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, so let's take a look at this. And just from bottom to top, it's the same order, just, you know, from the top to bottom. We have the video track up here, which is not present on the mixer, of course. There's the dialogue, buses, various sound effects, which I guess there aren't any actual sound effects. That's funny. Lots of Foley, lots of stems, lots of ambiences. Okay. So let's see what happens here. We're going to bypass the tones.
How now? What news?
He hath almost supped. Why have you left the chamber?
Hath he asked for me?
Know you not he has.
We will proceed no further in this business. He hath honored me of late, and I have bought golden opinions from all sorts of people. They will be worn in their newest gloss, not cast aside so soon.
Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since? And wakes it now to look so green and pale at what it did so freely? From this time such I account thy love. But thou feared to be the same in thine own act and valor as thou art in desire.
All right, so as much fun as that is, how many of you were listening to the sound effects? That's the effects volume. We're going to turn off the dialogue now. And we're going to take a listen to just the effects to see now what you'll notice. You'll hear a ton of Foley, ambiences, and of course that source music in the background, which is so much fun. So how do we do that? Well, one of the great things, that we talk about is busing your dialogue and your dialogue reverbs to a single bus, which we're going to go to the mixer and I'll show you. Oops, over here. So here's all the dialogue. Notice that it's going to DX mono verb. No, it's up here. DX bus, DX bus, DX bus. Everything's going to the DX bus. Why is that? Well, it gives us maximum control here on the DX bus. The DX bus then goes to the 5.1 print master here. And as you can see, I've got a little dialogue contour, EQ, that I'm not using, but it's there just in case I needed it. And if I wanted to make things brighter, I could do so. And all the dialogue, including its reverbs, would be boosted. I can also change and automate the levels. I can pan them. I can do whatever I want. Or, as I want to do in this case, I want to turn it all off by muting. Yay, we love the mute. All right, back to the top. Now listen carefully. Crazy earrings. Okay, so lots of Foley and lots of those crazy earrings. It wasn't my idea to put those earrings on her. Oh, hey, Independent Producer Academy. Did I get that user file? IPA. Is this SvenCam? Hello, sir. Did I get that user file? I don't think so, unless you uploaded it. I'll take a look here in a second. While we're doing a little playthrough, compression files. No, you're just lying to me. Okay, so now let's take a look at some of this. So we're going to scroll down here. First of all, let's just take a look at, we'll turn the music off just for fun. We'll take a look at these ambiences. I'm going to hold down Option. Oh no, I'm gonna hold down Shift, sorry. Make these bigger. I'm gonna give myself some more space now that we know what it looks like. Thank you so much for playing, Mr. Video. All right, so here's ambience number 1. It's basically just a room, simple room ambience, not a big deal. We just loop it. The room never really changes. We really don't have to pan a room ambience like this, even though the camera's turning. We don't have to worry about that too much. It's just there and it sounds great. Here is ambience number 2. Now, if you know anything about Macbeth, this is supposedly happening at a dinner party with the king and all of his buddies off in the corner having dinner. So there's a walla group, loop group, and every time the camera pans, that loop group is in a specific place. It needs to pan as well, and you can hear that being done. Well, bam. and then all of a sudden it's there. Let's see, if I want to look at this, we want to go, no, that's the outputs. I don't see what I want to see. There I go. All right, so this is pan. Yeah, we're looking at the pan angle, and you can see what's happening here if I zoom in. Cool. So that's what we need to do in order to make those kinds of directional ambiances play. It's a pain. We talk about it in the education, but we definitely show you how to do that. Here's ambience 3, which is really fun. And you're like, Mark, they're indoors. Why is there crickets? Well, there's crickets at night anyway, right? Just because they're outdoors doesn't mean that you wouldn't hear them. And if we go to effects, and we look at the effects rack, we can look at a parametric equalizer, and you can see what I did with the EQ there to darken them. With ambiances, we don't really need to spot ambiances that much unless there's something that we really need to, say, hey, this is important. We need to really make notes of that, because ambiances are just going to always be present, and you're cutting them scene to scene, cut to cut. There's not a lot to be done there. In fact, if on a feature film, if you're quick about it, you can really do multiple layers of ambiances in a day or less. It is the sound effects, it is the music, and of course it is the, what? I think it was Gail who wanted you to listen to something. Okay, I don't have it up there, unfortunately. I'm looking at the folder. So if you guys are having trouble, let me know. Let's see. All right, so that's the dialogue. Here's the Foley. When we were doing this, I'm just going to play these tracks for you, and then we'll kind of turn them off and show you how we do spotting. I love that so much. That is so successful. And that's Foley, right? You wouldn't have think Thunka having to do it, and we absolutely were not able to pick up his drinking. And what we got didn't sound anything like this, and nothing is good. So perfectly done. Here's some footsteps. And of course, it changes as soon as, even though she's coming into view, when the camera changes, the footsteps have to change. You don't just put Foley in the center channel and leave it alone. It is a definite part of the ambience process. Let's see what this one is. Oop, let's solo. And that's him, of course. And I believe if we look at the mixer, let me look at bus 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, I guess not. I guess that is built in to. Yeah, that actually has that built in, that ringing sound. Okay, cool. And then what's this? This is some clothing. Perfect. And then the jewelry, the horrific jewelry that took us forever. It was a really painful thing to do, because every time her head moves, those things go bang against something. Let's see if there's anything more fun in here to deal with. Oh, there's all this great stuff. Here's some more footsteps. Cool. How about this? Here's his footsteps. We kind of made it up because he goes off screen, but he still has to be there. That's putting the drink down. Here's some more clothing. Yep. Cool. All together now. And the music score comes in. So that's a great place to start. Where does the score come in? Now, the source music's been in there the whole time because it's really part of the ambiances. So we would fade it up on the scene as the scene fades up. But where does it go out? So what we do is we find where that place is dramatically on her move, right about here. And what we would do then is place a marker. Now I have my markers set up to be the keystroke M, and you can see here the marker just got placed just there. If I undo then I just hit it. You can see again, now it's marker 7, and the numbers keep going up. If you go over here to the markers tab, you can see that every one of these you put in gets a start and a duration, which in this case is 0, although you can give them durations if you'd like. And then you can double click here and call it whatever you'd like, MX start. And then obviously it's reflected up here, which is super cool. So that's a nice place to start. Music. Boom. Cool. So now let's go back to effects, and we'll take a look at things that we want to look at for effects, Foley, whatever placement. So we'll mute the sound effects and the dialogue for now. Let's see what we've got here. And obviously it's cheating because we've got these files here, but it's okay. You'll get the idea. So obviously the first thing we see is, I'm going to make this bigger, that drink. So we go here, and it's not, the sound of him sucking the water doesn't happen when the glass hits his lips. It's when the water gets into his mouth that it happens. Now, obviously, his mouth is not in a position where it would make that sound, but because it's moving so fast, his mouth is open, it makes perfectly good sense to do that. So we would do this, the water's gonna go there, we hit marker, I believe. No, I cannot. Can I do this? I said this. Ooh, it is definitely not that. Well, okay. There's a way to do this where I can just double click here. Losing my mind. Anyway, for now, you can just sit here and go, this is gulp, this is slurp. And then we'll move forward to see if we see his neck move for a gulp, but there isn't a neck move, so we have to expect that that water is flowing down his neck. Right here, we'll put another mark in. This is the gulp. Now, okay, so her footsteps start off camera. We're gonna have to decide how much, creatively, how much footstep sound do we want? In this case, I made it pretty quickly after he finishes that gulp and then starts turning. So we could say here, and we'll just say, open, Lady Macbeth, footsteps, perfect. Now he makes his first step right about here. You can see his body shift, and we're going right about there. That's the beginning of his footsteps. This is Macbeth footstep, starts there. You don't have to do every one of these footsteps. I mean, that's ridiculous. By the time you put the markers in, you could have placed them. Unless you're doing the new Foley library, which is still in process, but being worked on, where you're just gonna play it in, which I can't wait to show you that. So footsteps and things, you know, the usual Foley would probably go in here as he turns. You know, that's kind of cool. I don't necessarily mark Foley clothing because all of those cues are going to be on camera anyway. But we do want to mark the special bits that we know wouldn't necessarily be the most normal Foley, which is clothing, footsteps, and skin. So we don't really see her earrings until right about here where they're definitely moving. So again, we make the sound, expecting that even though we can't see her, she's in the dark, they're still making noise, which helps us with immersion. So we're going to go like this. We're going to say, Lady Macbeth earrings, start. Cool. And we're just going to continue. And I'm going to slide this over here like this. Something else is going to happen. Oh, he takes another step. Not a big deal. We definitely want to make sure we don't miss this jewelry. Actually, her earrings start right about there. This is more, and one of the things I like to do is just say copy. And of course, when I hit this, it jumps you to that place. So I'm going to go back here, double click, paste, do it again. Oops, I don't want a CD track. I don't want to make a CD track, no. Does anybody even listen to CDs anymore? Lots of that, lots of that. She starts her walk here. We can say Lady Macbeth. We can figure out footsteps for ourselves if we really want. Then there's this. Again, this cup being put on a table is off screen. We invent where that should be based on her body mechanic. Are we right? Well, there's really no such thing, especially at 24 frames a second. But when we come down, we see her motion, her shoulders end their motion right about here. And if you've ever tried to place something and lean over, you know that you've placed it before you finish, your shoulder motion. Otherwise it's gong, and you're like, you know, lurch or something. I don't know, nobody works that way. So she'll be placing this down earlier than her shoulders end. So we'll call this Lady Macbeth glass down. Down, that's fine. Cool. So you're kind of getting the idea here. And we just move through the timeline visually. You know, this is obviously an important thing where the shoulders comes off. That would be a very special sound. We'd mark that. Here's our mix start marker. And then there's, of course, this. We'd want to hit that, but, you know, pretty obvious we want to hit it. But you could be, you know, really meticulous and place that in there. Let's see, what else do we have going on here? Those daggone earrings. Then there's the sit. We're very pleased with this leather couch sound, which is so cool. You could mark that. He does the same thing, and then we're out. It's pretty basic Foley in this, and which is one of the reasons why we wanted to have it in there as a very simple but important drama. So that's how you would do marking. Then you've got your markers all listed here. You can also sort them if you want to look for anything particular. So if we wanted to go Lady Macbeth, there's all the Lady Macbeth bits. If we wanted to say footsteps, there's all the footsteps, and you can just jump to them as you'd like to. Jump, jump, and I'm double clicking, just so you know. Super, super helpful. Cool. Any questions about that? Otherwise, I want to move into the Spatial Audio Designer setup. It's easy for me to jump back to this also if you have a question. Cool. What is Spatial Audio Designer? Well, Spatial Audio Designer is it's a terrible term, but binaural way of listening to 3D audio, 5.1, 7.1, 11.1, 20.1, all of that. And if you listen to the music at all on the opening of the show, it's actually in Spatial Audio Designer in 5.1, sort of panned to the rear. But we want to do this in such a way that we can perceive, sort of, so to speak, 5.1 in headphones, because that helps us mix if we're in a noisy environment or we just don't have the ability to put up speakers. And in my experience, Spatial Audio Designer does a really, really great job of emulating what real speakers in an environment does. It's two things. It's one, they've shot various heads with very complicated impulse responses, and then they've shot various rooms, because there's no such thing as surround in a vacuum. There has to be some kind of room interaction. So I'm going to show you what my favorite settings are. I'm not going to delve too deeply in this, but I also want to show you how to set up this for yourselves. Well, the first thing we do is we want to take all of our buses. That's these guys right here, including the dialogue bus. These guys are right here. And we want to take, these are the sum total of all tracks found in these things as assigned to their various buses. And then we want to send each one of them to the 5.1 Printmaster bus, which is here. 5.1 Printmaster bus then becomes all tracks, all in one. And you can add your mastering. This is where you would do your mastering for the 5.1 output. You can also automate this if you need to control the volume, if you're not being volume-wise legal. Let me see here. How much Foley do you need if you have music? Should you do the Foley after you figure out the music? No. If you've watched the mix volume, you know that we do music, we put music in last. It's sort of like editing. I want to edit. I had an argument with a filmmaker the other day about they were absolutely adamant that they wanted to put music in while they edited. And I'm like, well, of course you can, and obviously you have to. It's a montage, but music is a giant time compressor. Time, you know, it makes time go faster. And if you cut your picture to music, first of all, you've already mashed the flow of the scene into whatever the music is. And especially if it's library music, it hasn't been custom built. So whatever the director had in mind, whatever flow the actors put into the scene are ruined because you forced it into a music mold. And then if you go to a composer, that composer then has to try to make what they normally would have done match with the music that you thought was such a great idea to cut to. And if we pull the music out, you may have a terribly cut scene. And scenes should work without music, yes? Similarly with a mix, your mix should always work without music. Why? Well, because somewhere in your deliverable, if it's a professional deliverable, you're going to have to deliver stems, and there may come a point at which somebody's going to be listening to everything but the music. And if it sounds terrible and if it's missing Foley, you're going to get a call from quality control, and nobody wants that. So I do a whole mix and make it sound great, do my general tweezing, and then add music in, do the EQ with the stems, whatever, go through the whole picture, make sure that it's all in a great place, and then do one more passive tweezing. We talk about that way. In fact, I think we do several hours of work on how we put that together. But the process is that music comes in last after a lot of the tweezing on everything else. And you're like, well, why? Isn't Foley and ambience, isn't that going to really, mess with that? Well, it does a little bit. You may be messing with the overall volume of the ambiences. And as always, you're balancing the coefficient between immersion, story, and emotion. And you know what those are. That's immersion, sound effects, story is dialogue, music is emotion. But if we put the music in prematurely, it loves to envelop everything. And all of a sudden, you've got a music track that's just way too loud. Whereas if we know we've put in all the Foley carefully, then we can kind of nudge the music into place and have it underscore, literally underscore, the track. And then you have the ability to change that if you want and grab the sound effects masters and push the music. And the last thing we do is generally do this with the sound effects and music, to get them to, from moment to moment, figure out what do we want the audience focused on or feeling. Do we want them to be immersed in the world? Do we want them to be immersed in the emotion? But it's really, really hard to do that if you don't have a pre-existing great sounding mix, if that makes sense. But that's a great question. Hello, okay, so what am I doing? Oh, we're talking about how we route this. Cool, great question. Great question. So all of these go to the 5.1 mix, master. The master 5.1 then goes out to whatever you want. In this case, Adobe Audition is already doing a stereo output, and this is the master channel here. You can see the 5.1 channels here working away and being down mixed to the stereo master. And as I said in one of our videos, in the direction mixer, I think we just posted that. Don't ever trust Adobe Audition to give you the true ITU master. You'll need to mess with those settings, which is in that video, which we will get to months from now when we are in the mix volume. So the print master is where we want to create our first plugin for Spatial Audio Designer. I'm on a Mac, and you can do this in VST3, but for me, I'm going to go AU, which is Mac, and then I'm going to do the 3D Spatial Audio Designer Send. And when you put this after the EQs or whatever mastering you're doing, that allows Audition to send these the data to Spatial Audio Designer, which then sends it to what ultimately is a mix plugin, which we'll show in a second. That mix plugin then does all the emulation and all that juicy, juicy stuff. If you will come up, please. There you go. Hi. And here's the top of the head of the person, the back of the head, and these are all your independent channels. Now you get these channels auto-generated because you're already instantiating this on a 5.1 bus. You can do this on mono buses, you can do this on any set of buses that you like, a bunch of them in fact. You could do them on every one of these buses independently if you wanted separate control. You can also automate any of these sound sources around in here if you like. And it's sometimes really advantageous to do that because the maximum channel output you can do in Audition is 5.1. But here you can get all the way out to, look at this, 24.2. What? I know, look at all these speakers. Each one of these lines represents a speaker. 3 speaker arrays in the front. I mean, that's even bigger than Dolby Atmos by triple. So what we want to do is make a 5.1, and we'll do this here. So we're going to go bang. And we get this cool little window. Right now it's in 24.2, crazy. We're going to select 5.1. And then these are all various emulations of headphones and these kinds of things. For internet delivery, I find that the headphone that I like to use most is the iPhone earbuds. They say bugs, it's a German company, buds, whatever. And this is the EQ curve that it uses, pretty draconian, but it tends to work for internet delivery. I also really like using for room properties the frequency-dependent envelope that mutes bass frequencies a little bit differently than otherwise. And you're like, what does all this have to do with anything? You'll see in a second. We always want the headphone surround 3D to be on, because if it's off, then it's just stereo. And now we need to, the problem with the Spatial Audio Designer and Adobe Audition is they really don't want to talk to each other in terms of where the channels go. You would expect that this is left, right, center, all that. It isn't. It's all messed up. So what we need to do, and worse, it kind of makes it difficult to figure out which one of these is which. So if I click on this little dot, you'll see it highlights track 6. How about this one? Track 5. This one, track 4. This one, track 3. There's no way to know which one of those were. Well, now we know, but we still don't know what's what. I can tell you that 1 is left, 2 is right, 3 is LFE, I believe 4 is left surround, 5 is center, and 6 is right surround. But let's double check. So we're gonna put the dialogue back in, because that'll help us with the center channel.
How now?
And you see these LEDs that are going on here. So obviously this is the loudest track, that's 5 for sure. We're gonna select 5, there it is. We're gonna drop this into the center. This obviously has nothing going on.
How now? What news?
Which means it's the LFE. To create the LFE, we're going to click on this and have a preset already put in place so that it's LFE only, goes to all, it doesn't go to any of the standard or full bandwidth channels. We'll click on this. This is, well, let's click on this. This is left. This is right. And I believe 4 is left surround. Looks about right. There's very little information, and this will be right surround. So it's a little wonky. Also, when I do this, I want the right surround to be up a little higher, and then the left surround the same. I want this to be up a little higher. Sort of emulating a cinema. Let's see. Okay, so now we've got this kind of setup. Here's the send. You're not hearing any difference because we don't have the mix plugged in yet. Now on the master, we want to have everything protected. We always want to have some kind of a limiter, and you know what setting I'm going to use for that. You've seen me do it 100 times. There it is. And we're going to instantiate the mix plugin. Again, this will be VST3 for you. There it is, 3D Spatial Audio Designer Mix. And these will start, I pray, talking to each other. And once they connect, then there we have the connection, the little checkbox instead of the ugly document sound looking thing. The mix brings up its own 6-channel mix, which has nothing in it. We don't want to use that. This green let's see here. Oh no, we've got 2 in here now. Is this going to tell me what I want to do? No, it doesn't matter. There's nothing in here. These are other buses you could use, but you can see the purple corresponds with the purple from our send. It is 5.1, and if we make this a little larger just for demonstration purposes, you can see.
Now, what news?
I had almost...
And notice the difference in the sound. All of a sudden, you're in a room. Not a very nice sounding room, but you're definitely in a room. Notice where that center channel is now.
How now? What news?
I had almost supped. Why have you left the chamber?
Hath he asked?
It's definitely, if you're on headphones, it's here. If you're listening on speakers, you're like, sounds terrible. I know. That's why it's for headphones. So we need to, it kind of messes with your studio settings a little bit. So we're going to go back here. The one thing I didn't show you is the location. Right now we're in a Sennheiser studio, which is basically they shot this studio. I don't really like it that much. The one I tend to use most, there's so many beautiful rooms in here. I mean, amazing. You can experiment with them on your own. But the one that I like most is Luna Studio 2, where the speakers are 80 centimeters apart. It loads that convolution. Also, I guess we lost our earbuds and our envelope settings. Okay. Oh dear, now it's lost communication.
What news?
I had almost supped.
Are you going to be cool? Well, it's definitely working.
How now? What news?
I had almost supped. Why have you left the chamber?
Hath he asked?
Feels very, very much different. If I turn off the headphone surround 3D, here's what it sounded like in stereo.
What news?
I had almost supped. Why have you left the chamber?
Hath he asked for me?
And back on.
We will proceed no further in this business. He hath honored me of late.
And like I said, you can automate any of those parameters. So we've got this correct. We're going to turn the bus back off. We're going to turn sound effects back in. which there's nothing there. Let's see what this sounds like now in this binaural surround. Okay, so that's pretty, it's pretty, pretty deep stuff. Let me just grab this ambience here and I'll show you. This is the one that's not being changed. It's just in the surrounds. There's center, left, right. Get in there. Right surround. Get in there. Left surround. And anywhere you'd like it. Mono. Wide. And then back to where it was. Is it perfect? No, but it's really, really provocative and really helps you figure out when you're on headphones like my Cinema Sound EX29s, where to put things in the field. I know it sounds like a theater. That's right. That's the whole point of it, is that you're emulating a theater. If you don't have that room correlation, convolution, it really doesn't work. And I'll just show you something really cool here. I'll turn this off. We'll go to, I'll give you the various studios here. So that was the one that I use. Here's the enhancement stage. I don't know if it's male enhancement, but enhancement, come on up, here we go. So that's pretty cool. Let's try another one. Here's B&R Recording Mobile. It's a mobile studio, so it's going to be tight. Sort of doing something funny to the ambience. It's got the that's going on there. Let's try one of these other ones. Planetarium. In fact, let's turn the dialogue back on.
Wouldst thou have that which thou esteem'st the ornament?
How now? What news?
It's a pretty ringy room. It's got a lot of woo in it. So let's see. I'll do one more. Who's having fun? I have had so much fun with this plugin. How about the Taurus Cinema? Takes it a little while to load.
How now? What news?
He hath almost supped. Why have you left the chamber?
Hath he asked for me?
Know you not he has?
A lot of woo, you know, 2 to 300 hertz going on, which is not really present in the Luna Studio 280 centimeter speaker width.
What news?
He hath almost supped. Why have you left the chamber?
Hath he asked for me?
Know you not he has?
We will proceed no further.
Let's jump to our music cue, see how that's working for us. Where is that MX Star right there?
Desire? Wouldst thou have that which...
Now look at how this music is being panned. A little over there for harp, metals, low perk, strings. Oh, that's the 5-1. Verb. Woodwinds. Celeste. Horns. Gives you a really wide space, a palette to be able to put your music in. And in 5.1, in this case, binaurally, it works really, really well. Let's remind ourselves what this sounds like in stereo. And it sounds like it's just right here instead of this big wash. Is it cleaner? Yes, it is. It's absolutely cleaner. But is it better? Not for mixing, because every time I use this on headphones and I then translate it into a real room, I've got about 90% correlation. It's really, really close. The LFE gets a little wonky, obviously. Hard to really demonstrate or reproduce that on headphones, obviously. Cool. All right. So now that's how we route that. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to, the time we have left, we're going to jump in. Also, just to remind you, if you're just starting with us here, feel free to, I should sample that. Ooh. Feel free to donate and support Cinema Sound with that little $ thing there. Get your highlighted posts up. All right, so we're going to go here, files. We're going to go back to our original session with the music.
Now, what news?
Ooh, that's cool. That ain't it. How about this one?
What's up?
That's hilarious. Show me this.
News.
I had almost...
No. This one.
Why have you left the chamber?
Oh, that is hilarious.
Asked for...
He wants to play the other session. How quaint. Tell you what, let's close selected files. No thanks.
What news?
Wow, it still won't clear. It just won't go away. Okay, we're just going to close all of these things. That's an interesting bug. No to all, please. And now we're going to open Recent. There we go. It'll take it a little bit to load that. Anybody got a question or anything while we're loading? Getting loaded? Who's getting loaded? Here, I'll go back to me just so that I can probably forget to put me back when I'm doing all this work like last week, remember? You're like, oh, it sounds great, but we couldn't see anything. Figures. I will tell you this, we are about to go to start production on a bunch of music-centric videos and articles, and we're going to be doing a massive push with JBL, doing some really great testing on some of the speakers and comparisons. We've got a bunch of evil competitors coming over to compare with them, so that'll be cool. Hi, we're back. Okay, now what I want to do is grab the file in question. Where did I put it, I wonder? It's not here. It's going to be on this drive with this and this. We're going to be here. Probably, I think it's this one, Breakfast Conversation. And it's mono. We will find a mono track somewhere here. There it is. Oh, I already have it here. How quaint. Right here, folks, right here for your enjoyment. Let's turn this off so we don't have any confusion.
You going to the dance?
Yep.
You got a date?
No.
Oh. There's plenty of fish to see, buddy.
Okay.
You don't seem all that excited.
I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
I just hold it in, you know?
It's a lot of pent-up excitement.
Yeah.
Ooh, crispy critters. So this is a piece of dialogue that's recorded. I'm not sure how. Jody brought it to us. But Jody, you've got a question about the sends again. Yes. I'm going to jump into that at the end. Let's take a look at this. I double-clicked. We can see that we have this loud transient here. Am I hearing this? Oh, it's coming out of my speakers. Let's change that so that you all can hear it yourselves. Channel mapping, no, let's send this to the correct place, 7 and 8. Aren't you glad to know you're coming out of 7 and 8?
Just hold it in, yeah.
So this is super loud, right? I mean, that's just bang in your face. If we normalized this, it will only normalize to this loudest part, which doesn't really help us. We want to bring this dialogue up as loud as we can. We don't care if this little hit goes over because we're going to do that as a sound effect or Foley or something anyway. So what do we got here? This looks like it's about -21. Let's bring this up maybe 15. Those transients, again, we really don't care about.
You got a date?
No.
Now if we listen to this, it should hurt, which it absolutely does. But there's nothing for it because we need this bandwidth to be able to correct and deal with this noise issue. Also, if we were to do this for real, I can't do it now because it will mess up the stream, I'd up-res this whole file to 192 kilohertz. So the first thing let's do, I haven't looked at this at all. So I'm going to go to Effects just to see what the built-in newfangled denoise plugin will do for us. And I don't need to see this waveform anymore. If you haven't seen the spectral view, this is high frequencies to low frequencies. You can see them here on the side. And then early to late, and then the brighter it is, the louder it is. So that's cool. Let's see what happens on a general full bandwidth. I'm tired of hearing that.
You going to the dance?
Yep.
You got a date?
No.
Oh.
Well, it's doing a pretty good job of cleaning that stuff up for sure. It's also giving us an awful lot of artifacts, which we don't want. Let's just try a high frequency emphasis.
You going to the dance?
Yep.
You got a date?
No.
Oh.
So that's better. Let's try the low frequency.
You going to the dance?
Yep.
It kind of helps because the high frequency emphasis is sort of killing sibilance that we really, really need. Those bowl hits, if we were to do a real correction, we would just kill those altogether. There's nothing in there that we want to deal with, nothing valuable in keeping those bowl hits because we can keep a lot more control doing them ourselves in sound effects and Foley. So we're not going to care about them insofar as they're staying away from our dialogue. Let's deal with the room now for a second before we do any burning by looking at de-reverb. Another great new plugin. Let's see how this goes. We're going to do full bandwidth again.
You going to the dance?
Yep.
You got a date?
No.
Oh.
There's plenty of efficiency, buddy.
Okay.
Yeah, let's try a mid-range here.
You going to the dance?
Yep.
You got a date?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a really hard one. It's the de-reverb plugin's not really doing a great job of figuring out where that reverb is. So we'll just stick with the denoise because that was seemingly helpful. Let's do one other one. Let's just double check the one I like to use most often, which is a little more complicated, especially if you don't have a lot of noise sitting around idle like we do here. Let's see. That could work. I like that mouth to spoon sound. I think if we get a little bit of this bowl up here, you can see in this area here, there's some high frequencies, which have nothing to do with any of the frequencies of the voice itself. Oh, please. We're going to go like this. We're going to capture noise print, and you can see the little bowl bits here. Let's see what happens now. Let's lower this way back. Okay. Oh, I got to recapture if I do that naturally. Here we go. Capture. Cool.
You going to the dance?
Yep.
You got a date?
No.
Oh.
Let's try 2. I'm just listening for artifacts and trying to fix if I can. Try to keep as many artifacts out and keep the noise down.
You going to the dance?
Yep.
You got a date?
No.
Oh.
That's pretty good. I'm not sure it's as good, and you keep your opinions. Keep thine own opinions, but I'm not sure it's as good as this.
You going to the dance?
Yep.
You got a date?
No.
Oh.
That's pretty good. If we apply, it does a pretty good job of killing off the noise in general. It's still there, you can see.
You going to the dance?
Yep.
You got a date?
No.
Oh.
Now that this has been brought down, let's see if we can do this noise, our regular noise reduction once again, and at a little less of a draconian setting, and see what happens. Oh, there it is at that weird setting. I don't want it there. I want it here, which means I have to remake this setting, capture the noise print once again. No, I want just this. Good, capture here.
You going to the dance?
Yep.
You got a date?
No.
Oh.
All right, that's going to help us. And basically I've done 2 noise passes with completely different settings, and we can see now how much cleaner this is.
You want to dance?
Yep.
There's artifacts, true. But if we go back to where we were, oops, not that far, there.
You want to dance?
Yep.
And then we return it.
You want to dance?
So what it needs now is high frequency help. It needs more high frequencies to see if we can resurrect some of those sibilants, some of the consonants of the voice that are being lost because for whatever reason that microphone isn't directly pointed at them, at the noise holes, or it's just getting a lot of the room reverb. Last week we talked about using Unfilter, and then also Ross reminded me about Vitamin from Waves. Let's do Vitamin once again, and this would be VST for you PC folks. It's a very inexpensive plugin. This is mono, Vitamin. Very easy to use, very smart to use. Let's see how we do here. It basically adds harmonics, not just EQ, and only when there's sound. It doesn't just keep it there, which helps keep noise down. We're going to want this band to be about here, and this band to be here. It's sort of like a multi-band harmonic enhancer. There we go. And I think we might want a little punch. Let's see what happens.
You want to dance?
Yep.
You got a date?
Nope.
Oh.
Oof.
There's plenty of efficiency, buddy.
Okay.
You don't seem all that excited.
I'm excited.
I'm excited. That's cool. Let's see if we pull down the direct signal, what happens.
You want to dance?
Yep.
Crush.
You got a date?
Nope.
Oh.
There's plenty of efficiency, buddy.
Okay.
You don't seem all that excited.
I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
I just hold it in. Yeah.
Ooh, that hold it in one's hard because he's banging on top of that.
I just hold it in.
Oof.
Yeah. I just hold it in.
That, I don't know what to do about that. But let's fix this. We're just going to apply this plugin. And as you can see, it didn't add any noise.
You got a date?
Nope.
It also didn't do anything. Oh, yes, it did. Yeah.
You got a date?
There's plenty of efficiency, buddy.
There we go. This bit,
I just hold it in.
Oh.
Yeah.
man, Jody.
Mm-hmm.
I just hold it in. Yeah.
The only thing I could think of to tell you to do with this, I mean, you could try declip. You could also try in RX dialogue isolate. In Audition, the only thing I could think of that would help, is there a click? Well, I don't know that this is going to do what we want. Oh, yes, you got to think about it. The Click Pop Eliminator is a deep plugin. Let's see what it does here. Well,
Mm-hmm.
Just hold it in.
no, it's not going to do what we want. The only thing I could think of is whip out the limiter, whip it out, and just crush the nonsense out of that hit. And we would do that by bringing down the, where am I at? Maximum altitude. There it is. So now,
Just hold it in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just hold it in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just hold it in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just hold it in.
and theoretically you could do this across the whole thing so that those things aren't just jamming out there. But if we hit it, you can see all of a sudden the waveform difference as well. If we undo that versus that, it's pretty significant. In fact, let's just do that. Let's just run it across like crazy people. And, oh man, I gotta do this again. Okay. Compression, hard limiter. I think I had it down here. Oh, that's just right where I wanted it. Nice.
You want to dance?
Yep.
Let's apply. Ooh, that's a little too much. That's like a serious haircut. I'm cutting everybody off. Let's bring this up just a bit. Nice. Now let's go back to this section.
Just hold it in. Yeah.
It's a lot of pent-up excitement.
Yeah.
A little nicer to listen to. You know, you can fudge with that a little bit to not cut the voices off, find some kind of coefficient, or just limit, and you can go in and select limit each one of those hits. Okay, I just want to see what dialogue isolate's going to do to this. Let's just see what happens here. I'm going to double click. I may have to reroute here RX because I think it might be going to my speakers instead of to all y'all. RX is another spectral editor. You can see the difference here, but it's basically the same thing. Let's kill this. No. Let's go to preferences, channel routing. Here, here. All right, dialog isolate. I'm going to tell it to just do this section right here because it's very complicated and it'll take it a while to figure this out. Let's see what it can do. Also notice this is appears to be a compressed file because, although when is this recorded at? 96K. Oh, that's why I was having a little bit of trouble. Okay, now we're in 8-bit 96K, and you can't hear me anymore. Got it.
Hold it in. Yeah.
It's like pent up excitement.
Yeah.
1 second. 1 second. Actually, you might still be able to hear me. Let me see here. Nope. Nope. So I'm going to export. Aha. Now I should be back. I didn't realize that was going to jump us into 96K. Let's take this clean version. I just want to bring this over so you can hear it. This should make it possible to hear. Let me make sure this is working. Now I should be back. Good, you're back. I am back. All right, let's take a listen to what dialog isolate did.
You want to dance?
Yep.
Let's normalize this whole thing a little bit more.
You want to dance?
Yep.
Got a date?
No.
Let's hear that bad place.
It's like pent up excitement.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Is it as good as our other one? I don't know. But dialog isolate might be a great place to start and then add vitamin and then do another denoise pass. You might try that or varying levels of that. But thank you, Jody, for bringing us this file. That is a brutal example of what must be done. And as Jody mentioned, she actually can't do ADR because I think that little boy is no longer a little boy, or at least doesn't have that voice anymore. Okay, Jody also wanted to look at the idea around it's called busing. Once again, what's the best way to do this? We can keep this file.
You want to dance?
Yeah.
There's our other one. So here is the track that we've been working with. Let's say you wanted to add reverb to it. You could. You could do it by simply dropping the reverb onto the track itself. And that's fine. But you could only then use this reverb on this track by itself. None of these other tracks could take advantage of it even if they wanted to, because there's no way to route the tracks to another track. So now what would we do if we wanted to route a bunch of these? Well, we would create a stereo bus. Even though this is a mono track, we're going to create a stereo reverb. Now on this bus B, which we will call reverb, we will then tell the sound on our master channel to go there. How do we do that? We go to the sends. That's this little thing right here, the S1. You've got 16 different sends. And we're going to say, go to reverb, this right here. Once we do that, we have the ability to turn up the volume and pan. I'm going to hold down Option or Alt, and it will make it 0, which means it's unity. Now you can see that it's going here as well, doubling the volume. But we don't want that. We want to actually put in that reverb. We would put the reverb on the bus. Now,
You want to dance?
we get that much the same kind of thing. We would make the mix 100% because we want to control the reverb amount from here, which is an automatable parameter, rather than this, which kind of has zipper noise.
You want to dance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like so. I can then do the same thing with other tracks. If there were stuff here, I would do the same thing. I could say send 1, go to reverb, and it would go there, and we could control it, and then it too would go there. All of this then going to the master. But in my case, what I want to do is send this to the Spatial Audio Designer Surround. Right now we know that everything that's going to Spatial Audio Designer Surround is doing so from the 5.1 master bus. So what I would do, because I want some of the dry signal to go there, is instead of sending the master, I'd send the dry signal to the 5.1 bus. I would also send, and you can see now I get a surround panner, and then I would also send the reverb to the surround bus, 5.1, and it also gets a panner. Notice the difference between the mono panner and the stereo panner. So if we, now you can see it's driving all of this. It's driving the Spatial Audio Designer. Cool. Let's mute the reverb for a second, and let's do a little fun with the pan puck.
You want to dance?
Yep.
You got a date?
No.
Actually, right now it's in stereo, which I'm not sure why. Oh, that's because it's off. There we go. Let's go back here. Let's make sure this is on. It is, but it is non-functional because it says it's happy. How about you? Oh, you're all over the map. Congratulations. Are you here? Oh yeah, you're in this crazy 24/2. Let's make this 5.1. Let's make it simple. This is from my master session, which is why it's a little different. It doesn't change our busing at all. Let me make sure this is working. It is. Okay, you're definitely talking to each other. The master, that's the reason. You need to go to 5.1 default. No, master. It should be master. And you should be going here. Still nothing. Oh boy. Well, okay, so I'll start with this. So you can see that going to the 5.1 masters shows up on the 5 masters. The theory being it should show up here. I'm just going to tell this. That's really weird. Track 6, this is here. That all should be happy. What am I doing wrong here? What's the button that needs to be pushed? 5.1. I'm just going to reinstantiate all of these because it may have gotten sick because I was loading that other session. We're going to go here. We're going to go send. I'm putting this on the 5.1 bus. Now it can re-establish, because it has its own internal buses, which we don't get to see for the Spatial Audio Designer stuff. It's really complex, but hopefully you're getting the idea of how to route this. Okay, there's that. That's going there. Now we're going to do the mix again. There's add mix. See how it wants to communicate. Oh, we're at 9.1. Oh, we're in Atmos. Cool. There we are.
Yep.
Okay, so now if I turn the reverb off again, yeah, it was just a glitch. Right surround,
Yep.
left surround,
You got a date?
center,
No.
right. It's not in a nice room. It's on that silly Sennheiser thing. Sennheiser. I'm sure it's a lovely room to mix in. It just does funky things here. There we go.
You going to the dance?
Right,
Yep.
center, left,
You got a
middle,
date?
left
No.
side, right surround.
Plenty efficient.
So, Joe, does that answer your question? Once you get it here, you don't need to do spatial audio designer. The same thing happens. You'll bus to a 5.1 output. Then when you're ready to export, you can export both the 5.1 output and the master to give you your stereo and your 5.1. We would do that by going File, Export, Multi-track Mixdown, Entire Session. Whoa. Yeah, 192. That would be so dope. Actually, this is not what I want to do. Sorry, my mistake. Ah. Export. There it is, Adobe Media Encoder. It'll boot Media Encoder. From here, you say what format you want to use. You can do it in Audition, I believe. For big sessions, what's great about Media Encoder is that it's far better at multi-threading. If you're in a big session, which Jody, I know you are, it will actually bounce at less than real time, which is a drag if you've got a 2-hour movie. A Media Encoder, however, won't. It does a much better job at using multi-processing and all that other stuff. So hopefully this gives you your answer, if that makes sense. Cool. And as always, we're over time. Yay, hooray for our side. Let me just pull this up. It takes it a little while on my box to do Media Encoder. While we're waiting, or not, no longer waiting. Load it, baby. There's all of our settings. It doesn't want to load it. Cute. Oh, there it is. AIF, let's say we want to do, AIF should be fine. Format settings, right? Now, we go here and we want to say, hey, I could do each one of these buses individually if I chose, which might be cool. Or I can do the master. This is not going to let me do that. A little crazy thing. Let's do waveform. See if it'll let me do it here. Ooh, 16-bit. Nope. Here. No. I'm doing this wrong, kids. I'm stumped again. Export session. Yeah. It helps if you're sort of okay with flowcharts in your head as to how to get things from place to place, but we obviously have this a ton in the education. I'm losing my mind here. Multi-track mixdown, entire session. Oh, here it is. Sorry, I'm wrong. It's not Media Encoder. It's right here under mixdown. You say, hey, I want to do the stereo master, which is basically this thing here, and I want to do the 5.1 master if you want. But what I do is I drop to buses. Hello, buses. There it is. Here's my reverb bus. Not that we would ever burn that, but there's the 5.1 bus. That's our true master. That's this track right here. And we want to burn that out as well as that stereo master. In this case, because Spatial Audio Designer is instantiated, it will be binaural. The 5.1 mix, however, the 5.1 bus will not be binaural. It will be the discrete 5.1. So you could do both of these at the same time. If we click OK, you can see there's the 5.1 and the stereo master at the original link data with the entire session. That's how you'd export it. In the education, and I think in the Quick Start 5.1 guide, we show you how to do the down mix, the 5.1, the buses, all the same button click, bang, and they all come out together, which is super cool. Will I be posting this session somewhere? No. And the template session that I use in Audition is available to you, where all of those files are. In fact, give me a second. I'm going to find those. I will find those here momentarily, and I will post the link for you. I'm doing this on the wrong computer. Wrong computer. Cinema Sound. All those files should be Series 7, recorded, live audio alchemy, Joseph instructions. Oh, they're not here. Well now. Okay, so there's a huge host of files that are a part of the education. Click tracks, the template that we use for audition, which has all the busing, everything in it, and beautifully laid out, just like we teach you to do. A bunch of the example files for dialogue cleanup, sound effects, music, and mixing, and of course all the burns of the various videos, the various they're called clips, short films, example videos. They're all available. I know they're on the Amazon thing. I never know where they are. I can't remember where they are. I know we posted it on Cinema Sound. There's an article there. If you search for, on the blog, if you search for files, download, Cinema Sound archive, you're going to find them there. But I'm going to post them on my personal website as well. It's probably going to be larger than small. But that way I will absolutely know where they are. Because those files are controlled by MZ, I don't really always know where they are. But I'll put them up for you so that you have them. Because this session is fine. It's just not as great as an example as looking at the template session that has it all burnt in for you. And that way you can pull it up and go, oh, I see how all of these go together. I see how this route's there. You can drop a piece of audio on it and move it around. And it's all in surround, so it's really, really, really useful. Okay, that said, folks, it's 7:17 here on the Pacific side. If you would like to support Cinema Sound, do that little $sign and send us a nice donation and your highlights will go up. I'm going to be here for a few minutes, probably finding those files and uploading them for you. And I'll stay on here for a little bit just to do that. Otherwise, folks, have a great week. Next week, we'll be doing Chapter 2. And from here on, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun, fun, fun. Until Dad takes the Cadillac. No, until Daddy takes the T-Bird. Takes the T-Bird away. Anyway, thanks, everybody. Been a pleasure to have you on. If you have any other questions, you can go ahead and feel free to ask them. Like I said, I'm going to be here doing a little uploading clearly so that we have these. This is one of the banes that I had. Generally, the production of Cinema Sound, the education went well, as brutal as it was. But a couple of these things got dropped out because of the switch in ownership and all that stuff. So, oh, look at this. Here, I'll show you what I'm looking at here. It's in the middle, it's in the center. And let's go here. Now the intro music is going to the 5.1 bus. That's stereo, and that's in the room. Let's make this a little narrower. There we go. It's interesting it's not doing a really great job of fixing all that. Anyway, okay. Thanks, everybody. I'm just going to get to work here. And go ahead and post any questions. I'll be up for a little while. There we go. Much better. This is 6, you're going to go back there. This is 5, you're going to be here. This is 4 is left around. And this is 1. Thanks, Jody. You too. And this is, what is this? Oh, that's 5. This is center. And you are 2. All right, let's find these files. assets. Gag sounds. Speaker pictures. Example sessions. Hi. Oh my gosh, that's huge. Thank you. We're gonna do this. Press. That's one. There's two. There's three. Oops. There's three. And the rest. All right, cool. I'm compressing the files now, and I'm gonna put that link. I'm gonna put the link in this chat, so I'm just gonna hang out here and put it in there, and then I'll email it out. Actually, I'll just email it out. A lot easier, so you can get the replay. Thanks, everybody.